I am so happy to be here with all of you today. We are joined by two bold Bulldogs of the last decade graduates, Caroline Smith and Margaret Lee. I'm very excited to have them today, but I just want to set the stage just for a moment. And first of all, welcome everybody and remind you that, of course, you can ask questions in the comments right in Facebook or put them in the chat or the Q&A if you are watching us in Zoom. My name is Stephanie, and I am a member of the Regional Clubs team at the Yale Alumni Association and the host of Yale Alumni Live. Very excited because today we're going to talk to Caroline and Margaret on the heels of the Impact 2 conference, which was hosted by the Yale Alumni Association in the last couple of weeks. Impact 2 is really focused on advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and put together an incredible program that was bingeable, which is so creative and clever, so that folks could watch as little or as much as they wanted at one time. And it was comprised of a number of conversations, panel discussions, impact stories, faculty lectures, and workshops, really committed to helping Yale alumni do just that, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in the communities in which they live. So we are really excited to talk to Caroline and Margaret, not only about their Yale stories, but how they are in effect really working towards this goal. And I'm just happy to have them here with us today. So Caroline, Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started the way that we normally do, which is talking to Caroline and Margaret about their own Yale stories. And then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what they're doing in New Haven now. So Caroline, if you don't mind, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, why you chose Yale, and what your Yale experience was like.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie, for inviting both of us. It's really great to be chatting with you today. I only wish we could be in person. My story with Yale. So I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, born and raised there. I loved growing up there. It was a great place to, I think, grow up as a kid and go for runs and, be a part of sports teams and groups of friends. And then I took a long plane ride over to New Haven. Why I chose Yale? I think how I'd answer that question is my mom grew up in South Korea. She grew up in a small village there. And education was really critical for her. Her experience of education was really critical for her in being able to provide for her family. She eventually got to a point in South Korea where she was a school teacher, which was sort of the highest kind of position that a woman could have in South Korea at the time. And then she got lucky enough to carve her own path. My mom is very courageous and brazen to seek higher education here in the States. And she chose the States because she couldn't receive, at that point, higher education. Women couldn't in the same ways, or it was a lot more strained and limited in South Korea at the time. And so she came here for the States and then didn't come back. And I think for us, for me, I think in knowing that story and hearing that story, and just in the way that our parents raised us, education was really, really critical. And I think very tied to, I think, survival and thrival and thriving. I think, I know I wanted to make my, grandparents or my grandma back in South Korea really proud of my mom for coming here and proud of the daughters that she raised. And being able to go to Yale was one way of making my grandparents proud, my grandma proud. And then a little bit about my Yale story. I think a huge thing that characterized my Yale experience was falling in love with New Haven. I fell in love with New Haven really fast. I felt very connected to the city. I felt that pretty immediately when I came here, just going for runs or just going to different community meetings or just all the different activities that were right outside my door. I hadn't lived in a central city in that way before. And I felt really attracted and really drawn to it and built a lot of friendships here, fell in love here when I was in college. And I think, I see a lot of the root of what drives my work is love of place, love of community, and love of people. And building those kinds of friendships and community members meant I built a mutual stake in the future of the New Haven community. That my stake for myself was really tied with the stake of New Haven because that was my community and those are who my friends were. And I got lucky enough to be able to stay here after I graduated. But I'll toss it over to Margaret for her story.
Thanks, Caroline. Go ahead, Margaret, whenever you're ready. Tell us your Yale story.
Yes. So Caroline and I have a lot of similarities. For me, I've grown up in a lot of different places. I lived in LA, San Francisco, South Korea, and then most recently before coming to Yale at Louisville, Kentucky. So we're both from Kentucky, sort of transplants here in New Haven in that way. And for me, I chose Yale. I was, to be honest, like it was a decision between two schools. It was Yale or Williams. And, you know, I wanted to be in a city, like I wanted to be in sort of a place that had proximity to New York City, to Boston, especially coming from a place like Louisville. I was excited about just being connected to a larger sort of like cosmopolitan area. And obviously Yale was such a fantastic school, so I knew I was going to get a great education. So chose Yale, stepped foot in New Haven, and was just so awed by the energy here. And, you know, in spending 4 years in college, I had a pretty typical experience. Like I did a lot of different student activities. I ran a Model UN conference. I joined mock trial for a hot second. I had great friends in my residential college, was able to create a real network and a sense of comfort, security, exploration together with my friends. And just got involved. I was an English major, so, you know, going to LC all the time. So I think in that way, my experience is great. And I learned so much, met amazing people, made lifelong friends. And I think one thing that I do think was missing, and in one way, you know, that Caroline and I are different, is that while I was in college, I didn't have a relationship with New Haven. I wasn't venturing out as much as I could have. I was very much just doing the Yale thing with my Yale friends. And I think it was only after graduating when I was able to get a job in New Haven that I started to really explore the city. And in that way, looking back in my college experience, I think being engaged with the city in a thoughtful, rigorous way would have really transformed my experience those 4 years, and in some ways, like really amplify a lot of the experiences that I was having within Yale's walls, but also bringing in this other perspective. And ever since then, you know, I've been out of college for 5-6 years now, and it's been, for me, a real sort of falling in love story with the city ever since I graduated, and sort of being sensitive to the relationship between Yale and New Haven, and understanding sort of my role in that, and sort of navigating both spaces, and trying to be as thoughtful as possible in doing that. And obviously creating this organization with Caroline, and doing that really thoughtfully as much as we can. So that's kind of my Yale story, and sort of how I ended up here.
So I just love that you guys fell in love with New Haven and stayed and are making such an incredible impact. And it isn't only where you are working now, with the organization that you've put together now, it's your first job or your early after college job was together as well. Both graduates of the class of 2014, you guys started out. Will you tell us a little bit about the organization that you started out with and how that eventually moved into Collab, what you're doing now?
Yeah, so actually Margaret and I, when we first graduated, had 2 different jobs, but we eventually landed in the same place. But I'm happy to tell you about that place. Margaret was working at the Yale Entrepreneurship Institute, which is now Tsai City, and then I was working for an organization called SeeClickFix, and then we both ended up being co-directors of marketing at SeeClickFix over the course of a few years. But SeeClickFix, officially now they've actually been sort of merged or been acquired by another organization, which is super, super exciting, and huge congratulations to the team. But I think SeeClickFix, exciting civic technology company that provides a mobile application and a desktop application for residents to report non-emergency issues, so things like potholes or graffiti, founded right here in New Haven by a mutually sort of Yale and New Haven founding team. Ben Berkowitz, who's one of the founders of SeeClickFix, I think was just honestly a hero of mine, now a friend. Literally ran into him yesterday at Nico's. I think he was a mentor for me. I first read about him in the Daily Nutmeg, which is this like really popular newsletter. when I was a sophomore and went and visited him over the SeeClickFix office when it was like a bunch of boxes and hammocks, and we just really hit it off. And one part of SeeClickFix is during snowstorms, matching volunteers with folks who need support shoveling out their driveways, whether that's someone who needs to go to the hospital or folks who just have a difficult time being able to shovel. And so Ben and I went shoveling together, and then from there, with this built relationship, I got lucky to be able to work there after graduation, and it was a really wonderful experience to be able to be connected to something that was building on a national scale, but started and had such a focus on local residents right here. That was our first, me and Margaret's, I would say one of our first experiences working together, although we were starting to work on some of the first iterations of Collab, but I'll toss it over to Margaret to talk a little bit more about either SeeClickFix or YEI, or maybe the beginnings of Collab as well.
Yeah, of course. So working at YEI, which as Caroline mentioned, is now called the Tsai Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale, I was running student faculty programs for entrepreneurs. So students or faculty who are interested in starting businesses or organizations of some sort. So I was running, office hours, sort of meeting with people, talking them through some of the early stages of their idea and what to do about it. I ran a few different programs, both an academic year program as well as a summer program, and then met Caroline, who was working at SeeClickFix, and we started brainstorming immediately about what we could do together to bring the New Haven and Yale sort of entrepreneurial ecosystems together. We really bonded on sort of that relationship between Yale and New Haven, and as alums sort of living here who have a lot of love for both communities, like what role could we play in creating space for those communities to come together, and did that for a little bit. I did sort of social entrepreneurship programming at Yale, sort of making sure that we were making space for folks interested in social impact, which seems so commonplace now, but back then it was sort of a new thing, social impact as well as potentially nonprofit projects as well, and which was a great experience. Learned a ton about all different industries, all different stages and types of organizations, met a lot of people. And I think, working at SeeClickFix for me was very much, SeeClickFix, as Caroline mentioned, very much seems like an organization built on a love of a specific place, which is New Haven. It's like they built a relationship with this city, Ben and his crew, and then said, like, this can exist all over the country. And that was a really exciting moment for me to just kind of see what a for-profit solution could look like at scale, and being a part of that team was really, really awesome. And then sort of I think both Caroline and I just like turned our attention back towards New Haven in some ways, right? It's like we couldn't get out of that sort of relationship in some ways, and we were like, what can we actually do now? Now that we've learned what engaging with cities can look like at scale, like let's turn our attention back to this local area that we're in, and kind of combined a lot of Caroline's relationships and knowledge of New Haven, as well as my experience and background working with entrepreneurs, to create first just an event series. We were just kind of bringing people together. They were coming to us with like, hey, we want more. We have ideas. We want to do this project or create this business or create this nonprofit. Where can I go? And we wanted to create something for our neighbors and friends, sort of with the excellence and network that I was seeing at Yale, but for anybody who lives in the area, especially folks who have, were born and raised here, who love it here, who want to stay here and have a stake here already. And so we combined our efforts to create the first iteration of Collab back in 2017.
So you're going on 4 years. Tell us, Caroline, if you could, just give us the very basic, this is how you describe Collab to everyone, so that everybody's on an equal playing field here. We can talk a little bit more in depth about what Collab has been doing, what Collab is planning to do in the future, and who you guys are serving very specifically.
Yeah, definitely. And this is sort of building off what Margaret said about sort of based upon the conversations that we were hearing from our friends and neighbors. And community members. Collab is an organization that empowers individuals and families to use the pathway of entrepreneurship to gain individual autonomy and choice in their lives, be able to build wealth for themselves and for their families. And really, as leaders in their neighborhoods, really begin to shape their communities. And we specifically prioritize serving people of color and women, particularly Black and Latinx entrepreneurs who face persistent and significant barriers to entrepreneurship because of racism and sexism. And I think, for us, entrepreneurship is a way of creating economic stability for a family. And I think, and it always has been an economic driver. And we think it also is something that allows an individual to have autonomy and ownership and choice in their lives and begin to really feel and realize and actualize the ways in which they belong to a community. And I think, the way we define entrepreneurship is an individual who takes a risk on behalf of their community and creates value for their community. And we believe that opportunity to utilize this pathway, again, that's long been used as a wealth driver and economic driver, should be accessible to anybody, no matter their background.
Excellent. So Margaret, tell us a little bit about the process for individuals who are interested in working with Collab. How do they find you? How do they get connected? How do they benefit from the services that you are offering?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of think about our work and the flow of our work as having three main pillars. The first pillar is what we call equity and access. So we really, really need to see ourselves as not just a part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, but part of the community services ecosystem here in New Haven, so that anybody who is plugging into any kind of support can see us as an option. So we have partnerships with organizations who are doing work with their constituents to say, hey, this is a resource that exists, and they can kind of refer folks to us. We make sure that we're very, very accessible, very responsive, very joyful, so that people feel like this belongs to them, that this is something they can be a part of. We have an office hours program, which is open to the public, 30-minute sessions, just kind of talk about whatever's on folks' minds to, again, lower the barrier to entry. So that's a big part of it. Second part is what we call high touch programming. So entrepreneurship takes a lot of effort. There are lots of ups and downs. It takes a lot for an entrepreneur to walk down that path with ease and confidence. And so we dedicate a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of wraparound services like childcare, transportation, interpretation to make sure that if you're a part of our program, you're really taken care of. We really pay attention to you to make sure that you're making progress on your individual goals, as well as learning some of the sort of topics and subject matters that we cover in our curriculum. We have a 12-week program that folks can be a part of. There's the weekly workshop series, weekly one-on-one coaching, mentors, pro bono technical service providers. We have a pitch day, and really a community of entrepreneurs that folks can kind of join who are all in this together. The last piece of what we do is what we call comprehensive support. So we've assembled a really broad network of advisors, mentors, service providers, corporate partners to make sure that we're really holding our entrepreneurs. It takes a village to create a business. Nobody does it alone. And so can we replicate sort of the invisible networks of privilege that already exist for a lot of us, for all of us? And so can we be that network? So that's another way that even if you're not an entrepreneur, but maybe you have some expertise you want to plug in, that's a way to do that as well.
Really impressive, what you just touched upon about caring for the people thoroughly, caring for your people who are in your program, childcare, transportation. People often take that for granted, how that is a major barrier. It's very impressive that you thought that through so thoroughly. Now, you guys have told me that you have a pitch day on Thursday coming up. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that's going to look like for the participants?
Yeah, and Stephanie, just to the point you just made about childcare and interpretation, I think, something that's really important to us is that our programs are, really led and guided by our entrepreneurs. So the reason why we provide childcare is because we talked to dozens of entrepreneurs before we started Collab who said, hey, given in the current landscape of different workshops or resources, we can't go because I have a kid. We can't go because I don't speak the language. And so a lot of our programmatic decisions were made in deep partnership with entrepreneurs and what they were saying they needed. So thanks for bringing that up, and the credit goes to entrepreneurs who articulated that to us as a need. Yes, so this coming Thursday is our pitch day. So it's a culmination of our food business program. We started, so food is the first industry where we've done food industry specific programming. We do run 3 cohorts per year. 2 of our cohorts of our accelerator are general, so not industry specific. And then 1 is in partnership with another local organization, City Seed, focusing on food entrepreneurs specifically. And we sort of dedicated ourselves to food as our first industry specific program for 2 reasons. 1, because we had an amazing partner in City Seed. City Seed is really interested in food justice. They have a commercial kitchen space they rent out to entrepreneurs. They're really interested in dreaming around bigger commercial kitchen spaces to support food entrepreneurs. And so their expertise around providing those kinds of supports for food, and our expertise on early stage fundamental support for businesses as a combination was really exciting. And then second, food is a really interesting industry. I mean, one, as a lot of the folks who may be listening know, New Haven is sort of a hub for really innovative and creative food ventures, especially those that are culturally specific. And 2, food is a fairly accessible industry. Obviously, it's more capital intensive if you're trying to start a restaurant or maybe even a food truck. But if you're trying to start a product line, trying to get into catering, a lot of the entrepreneurs we work with have been working in their kitchen since they were young with their parents, or have recipes that have been passed down for generations, and they can use that as sort of a basis for being able to create a really innovative and delicious product for folks that folks could be really attracted to. So those are the 2 reasons why we went in that direction, and it's been great. We've been running it. This is our 3rd cohort. City Seed had run 1 initial pilot cohort just with immigrants and refugees chefs, and then it expanded once we got on board. And as Margaret mentioned, Pitch Day is the kind of culmination of the program. So we've been running the program in the past 2 or 3 months, and it'll be virtual, so anyone can join. And really the heart of Pitch Day for us is, of course, there's exciting opportunities to create connective tissue between them and investors, or them, ventures and potential customers. But I think the ultimate heart for us of what Pitch Day does is, for a lot of our ventures, they've never been on a stage or a virtual stage before. Maybe this is their first time pitching their venture to anyone beyond their, close friends and family. And if ventures can leave this day feeling like they did something that they originally thought was impossible for them to do, or they never imagined themselves doing, or were nervous about, and they leave feeling proud, that is part of our theory of change. That confidence, that moment of confidence, that moment of self-belief is critically tied to the eventual success of the potential venture, and also just that individual's life, even outside of the venture. And so Pitch Day is a really important moment for that confidence building and that self-belief.
So Caroline and Margaret, I told you this the other day. I saw that there was a little chatter on the Yale Food and Drink Facebook group about one of your ventures. Can you share with us just a couple names, maybe some groups that have been established a little bit longer, so that Yaleys who are in New Haven may have a moment and say, oh my gosh, I've gone there. I know about this place, and that they've got their roots with Collab. Can you share a couple names of some organizations or companies?
Yeah, one really amazing venture that is a product of our food business accelerator is called Vegan Ahava. So run by this woman, Perea. She makes veganized soul food, so like delicious mac and cheese, or like buffalo chicken grinders, but not chicken. It's very, very delicious. And she is awesome. She has a food truck, really accessible to Yaleys because it's on College Street, right next to the Green, right in between Old Campus and the Green. And so really accessible there. Also has a storefront on Court Street. So we love talking about Perea because she's a product of Concat's culinary program. So that's another nonprofit here in town. They do amazing, amazing work, one of the most amazing nonprofits in town. And after doing that, she was like, hey, I have these skills now. I really want to create something for myself. And she was able to pull it off. And we supported her probably at this point a couple of years ago, and ever since then it's been just a steady stream of growth for her and attention. And so we love talking about Perea, and probably is the best option for Yaleys just looking to take advantage of some FBA food.
I love that. And what we'll do is we'll make sure to link your website with the list of all of your ventures to this video so that people can go and check it out for themselves. There was a quick question about funding. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you work with entrepreneurs on funding, how that all kind of comes together, what support you provide them with?
Yeah, definitely. And how we provide support for our entrepreneurs and funding is also linked with the funding for Collab as well. So Collab's been lucky to be funded by 2 institutional partners, one the state of Connecticut and 2 the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, through their Mission Investments company. We're really excited about our partnership with the Community Foundation because their Mission Investments company, because their interest in investing in Collab is an investment in building the pathway for entrepreneurs that they could be excited about investing in, whether that's loans or equity investments or otherwise. And so we do have some funding partnerships with Collab with partners that are interested in making investments in the kinds of entrepreneurs that we're working with, which is really exciting. We are always interested in how to build out a thoughtful funding network of different funders that are interested in providing sort of thoughtful and appropriate support for our entrepreneurs. Because although not all of our ventures want to scale and grow or need funding in our investments, a lot do. And so creating those really great connections with partners who are interested in providing support for entrepreneurs who have that kind of fundamental belief in taking a chance on entrepreneurs is really exciting to us. And sort of cultivating that network of partners is a deep part of the work that we do. I think the only other part I would say, besides assembling that group, is also providing the programmatic support for entrepreneurs to be ready to healthily receive that funding. So supporting them on their go-to-market strategy or elements of their business plan or the number story, the finances behind their business is really important for making sure that partnership between a funder and the entrepreneur is really healthy and conducive to sort of healthy, steady growth for that venture.
Thanks, Caroline. So, those of you who've stuck with us this entire time, we started off by talking about Impact 2, which was hosted by the YAA a couple of weeks ago, advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of that is streamable both on Yale Alumni YouTube and at alumni.yale.edu. So here's the thing. That was a call to action. We are encouraging our alums to get involved in this mission. So I would be remiss if I did not say to Caroline and Margaret, how can Yaleys get involved in Collab or do similar things in their own communities? But of course, we would love for them to support you in your venture because what you are doing in New Haven is incredible. So tell us how people, specifically alums, can get involved in what you're doing.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, there's sort of 3 main ways folks can get involved. So one is providing direct supports for entrepreneurs. We have a great, robust mentor network of around 30 to 40 individuals who have business experience, industry expertise, who get paired with our entrepreneurs to provide that not only sort of business expertise and guidance and technical assistance, but also that kind of emotional support. As probably folks in the audience can imagine, entrepreneurship can feel like a really lonely journey. So if we can provide those kinds of mentor networks, advisor networks around our entrepreneurs to provide that base of support, that's really powerful. So if you're an alum who has some of that background, is excited to use the experiences you have to support local entrepreneurs here in New Haven, please reach out to us. We would be thrilled to talk to you. Alums have been a great part of that program for us. Second is funding. We're currently fiscally sponsored on our way to becoming a 501c3. Funding is what keeps our lights on and keeps our ability to provide this kind of direct service to entrepreneurs. We really see our relationships with our mentors and advisors as very similar to our relationship with our supporters, a foundation of relationships, keeping people really connected to the entrepreneurs we work with and really connected to us. So we'd be very excited about that. And then lastly, sort of general advising. We Collab is a startup in and of itself. What the reason I think why we've been successful so far is because we've taken a really iterative relational approach to the work we do. We've been built off a foundation of relationships from folks who have pushed us, asked us questions, given us incredible guidance. And so we are very, very excited for folks who especially have nonprofit experience, folks who have programmatic expertise to give us advice. We will sit down with anybody to have a chat to see if there's ways in which your expertise, your energy, your enthusiasm can support us as an organization and us as leaders and our staff. We would be really thrilled to have that advisory support.
Thanks, Caroline. Margaret, would you like to add anything else to that? I know you guys have this down pat, so I don't want to mess with your flow, but please feel free to add.
I thought that was really well said. Those are the three main things that folks can plug in. And I guess the only other thing that I would add or reiterate is how seriously we take our relationships. It's what we're built on. And so plugging into us means just forming a relationship with the two of us and our staff. And we would be excited to talk to anybody about anything that they're interested in too. So our doors are open.
Thank you both so much. It's, Caroline and I have had the pleasure of knowing each other for a few years now, and it is just so important to keep people like you in New Haven supporting the community that I know that you have come to love. I love your story, Caroline, about falling in love with New Haven. And Margaret, I love that it took you a little while, but that you stayed and that you guys are making such an incredible impact for the people who have been born and raised in New Haven or who have sought asylum here in New Haven and make it what it is, which is a wonderful place to live and work and eat, especially as evidenced by all of the groups that you just mentioned. So I'm going to thank you guys so much for your time today. We are going to make sure that everybody knows how to connect with Caroline and Margaret through Collab, how you can find more information on the Impact 2 series. And thank you so much for telling your stories with us today. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll see you around New Haven in the near future when we all get back to campus. But that's all for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching another Yale Alumni Live. We'll be back later this week and later in April. Thanks so much, guys. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just stopped the live stream on Facebook, so we're just here in Zoom. But I'm gonna post this when I have the recording available in all of the groups that are like Yale Food and Drink, Yale Entrepreneurs, like all that kind of stuff, because there's a ton of groups. I don't know if you guys are in all of them, but I will post this in there so that we can get you guys a little bit more connected to some other groups that might be interested in getting involved.
Awesome.
That is so awesome. This was so fun. Thanks for being, thanks for our chat before and helping us think through the different questions. I think we felt really equipped and prepared coming into this. And this was great.
Good. I'm glad.
How did it feel for you?
Oh, it was good. I'm just like coming down with a little bit of a cold. It's like I'm not as upbeat as I normally would be. It's just like kid germs, like they try to defeat you. They come home with like runny noses and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And then next thing I know, I'm like chowing down the zinc. So
yeah.
Well, good thing. I mean, Stephanie, people have probably said this before, but probably your lowest bar for upbeat is like most people's like high bar. And so I think you're good.
Also, I know, it is sad.
How did hockey go yesterday?
It was good. He played very well last night. So I'm very encouraged. We'll see. There aren't a ton of kids who are still in that age group. So he's going to either be hopefully on the A team or the B team. He's very little. So it could go either way. Like he could potentially get on the A team, but it's probably going to be the B team. But like, the mom in me is like, he could do it. He could be on the A team, but we'll see. He's got plenty of time, I just have to keep myself in check, tad bit competitive. But in any case, I will definitely get this spread out for you guys. I just think that what you're doing, and I have for a long time, as you know, Caroline, is so important and so it's just so great that you guys stayed in New Haven and are supporting the New Haven community because, Yaleys, they come from all over the world and they don't always stay. And there is a nice community in New Haven of Yaleys, but people don't know about it. So I want to, do whatever I can to get that word out. So anytime. And if there's ever anything else that you want to highlight, a group that you want to highlight, a company, organization, whatever, just, how to find me. So more than happy to keep doing stuff like this. And when events are happening, if you want to do something with the Yale Club of New Haven, because they're always looking for activities, I'd be more than happy to connect you with that. So.
Yeah, never hesitate to reach out for things like Impact or whatever. If anything comes up, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love that
I
kind of stuff.
I would imagine that this type of programming, we've done it pretty consistently, but I think there's more and more need and desire for it. So hopefully we will be able to get you guys wrapped into that. But this is a really nice segue from that into what other people are doing. And I have it all kind of cross-connected. We'll probably add it to the impact stories when we post it. So
Awesome.
we got you guys everywhere. Thank you so much. It's always
Thank
a pleasure.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of
Good
your
luck
day.
on Thursday.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Bye.